Welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. Heather Trim is here from Zero Waste Washington. We're going to talk about some of the legislation that's in front of our lawmakers right now and the work that Heather does all the time to help us as communities that are trying to be more responsible, which I'd like to mention actually that we are grateful that we are meeting on the ancestral homeland of the Suquamish people who have been honoring these lands and waters of the Salish Sea since time immemorial. And part of the work that Heather does and that we are talking about today is to try to enhance our stewardship of lands and waters by being more respectful of our world. I also want to thank Fieldstone Communities of Bainbridge Island, which sponsors Something to Talk About. They offer independent living and assisted living and memory care on Bainbridge Island up on Rolling Bay. If you'd like to take a visit or learn about day stay or respite care programs, call Celia or Jamie at 206-594-1010. Now, Heather, I know that this has been a little challenge scheduling you because this time of year, you don't know what's going to happen one minute to the next almost.
This is legislative session. It's a long year, so it started January 13th. It goes through April 27th. During session, I relocate down to Olympia weekdays, most days, and it's hot and heavy down there. And right now, it is particularly intense because the fiscal cutoff is tomorrow, Friday at 5 p.m. So there's a lot of effort to get the bills, the policy bills across the finish line through the fiscal cutoff and onto rules in the floor.
Okay, so what that means is that there are critical decisions that are being made right now about what things might be enacted into law.
Well, it's to get it to the next stage. And a lot, because we have a budget crisis right now at the state, and many other states do as well, a lot of bills are not going to make it because they have too high of a cost to the state. That's called the fiscal note. And the fiscal note is just way too high for many, many bills. And I've already noticed that it seems like fewer bills were even brought to this stage this year.
So, so tell us a little bit about your job and how at this time of year you're there sort of on behalf of all of the zero waste folks in the state.
Sure, and we view ourselves as the sort of voice of the public on these kind of issues, the waste issues, the pollution issues related to waste and microplastics and all that. What I do is I'm executive director of Zero Waste Washington, but I'm also a lobbyist. So I interact with a lot of legislators on a very regular basis, and including during the off season. So during the off season is when you prepare bills and you have a lot of stakeholder meetings and things like that. You need to really start the session, start January 13th with a lot of your work already done on a bill. It'll have a much better chance if you've already worked on it, especially if it's a complex sort of system changing bill like our number one priority bill is, which I'd be happy to tell you about.
Yeah, I think let's start with that. So you have priority one right now, given all those things that you hinted at about timelines and priorities and the fiscal note. So what are you pushing for
What's our
us
number one?
right now?
So, and just to step back on that, so we've had about 24 different zero waste related bills that we've been working on. 3 of those are bills that we oppose, and the rest are bills that we are want to have happen. And then we have our priority bills. So our number one priority bill is the Recycling Reform Act. It's HB 1150 SB 5284. So that's HB 1150 SB 5284. And that bill would completely revamp our recycling system in Washington. It would give us the same list of what people recycle all across the state. It would make recycling almost free for everybody. It would incentivize the brands. So we're talking about, brands like Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, Kellogg's, et cetera. All the brands would be incentivized to have material that they put, the packaging would be recyclable. Because right now that is very frustrating for people. People are concerned that think they're putting things in the blue bin and it's not being recycled. This bill would take care of that.
That's, yeah, that's wonderful. And we've talked on this program and with Diane Landry at Zero Waste Bainbridge a lot about the frustrating elements of trying to figure out what goes when or what goes where. And I guess I could also say when, because those rules change based on what our local recyclers can sell. So
Right.
this would clarify a lot of that statewide.
It would simplify it. It means that what you'd put in your blue bin would be able to be recycled, or else they would not tell you to put it in the blue bin.
So HB 1150, the House Bill 1150 and Senate Bill SB 5284, where are they right now?
They're both on deck to be voted out of their financial committee. So the one is being voted on right now as we speak, and one is scheduled for tomorrow.
Okay, and given the constraints, you still are upbeat about the possibility that we can get our legislators to move on those.
Well, we've been working on this since 2019. So this is a many-year effort. And when you do a big system-changing bill like this, it can be a many-year effort. The opposition is the waste industry. Big garbage is the opposition on this bill. It would, they are very concerned that this would be infringing on their ability to do what they're doing, which we think is the opposite. But of course, change is hard. And also we think it's going to bring more jobs to them because more people will be able to recycle and more trucks that they could buy and more profit for them ultimately. So we are a little concerned why they're so negative, but it is, kind of there's inertia in the system, and the inertia is not wanting to have this change.
In this last couple hours, are there any things that we can do to help or?
Yes. So not today, but in the next few days, it would be very helpful for people to call their legislator or send an email and say, please, pass the Recycling Reform Act. And you can tell them the bill number when you do that. There is an 800 number that is super easy to do. You call in and they take down the message, they type it up, and they actually send it to each legislator. I don't have that 800 number handy with me, but I can tell you it shortly.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
that's super easy.
And you also can very easily, by going on the legislative website, you can figure out how to contact your legislator. In our case, most of our listeners are going to be dealing with Tara Simmons or Greg Nance in the House and Drew Hansen in the Senate.
That's right.
So beyond that, you mentioned a couple of bills you're trying to speak out against, and some of the things that are lower on your priority list. What is still alive in those priorities?
So on our priority list, our second highest priority is right to repair. And we have two of those. One is right to repair for electronic devices and appliances in your home, which means that the the brand owners, like for example, Microsoft or HP or Apple, they would provide to the public and to the small independent repair shops the parts, the tools, and the specifications so that you could repair your own cell phone, put a new screen on using an Apple part or another person's, the original part, or a small repair shop could. We've been working on this for 7 years. This is the eighth year working on this bill. We really want it to pass. And the barrier is, and has been for the last few years, Apple. They have been the #1 opponent to this bill, and they've been able to stop it up until this year. In addition, we have another bill, which is the right to repair for powered wheelchairs, and Senator Drew Hansen is the champion on that bill. And that bill number is, and we really want that bill to pass. That bill is SB5680, 5680. And that would be the same thing, that the parts and the tools and the specifications would be available to the public in small repair shops at cost. And what I've heard about power wheelchairs is that you can sometimes wait 7 weeks or more to get a basic part, like just a button that's come loose and you need to replace the button, or a cord. These are pretty simple fixes, but if your powered wheelchair cannot go, you are really hampered in terms of what you can do in your life.
You're
And
depending,
Marsha Cutting, who's from Bainbridge, is the
exactly, as a
champion.
member of the senior center.
She's a
And yeah,
champion of this bill.
yeah, I was gonna just mention, Marcia has talked about the frustration.
Yeah,
And so basically you're just asking people, manufacturers of products, to make it possible for people to continue to use those products without having to, in her case, or in the case of a wheelchair, be frustrated for weeks or months,
that's right.
or throw this stuff away, which is the absolute wrong thing to do.
Right.
But you can easily look up who is your legislator on the Washington State legislative website. So,
That's right.
and I
So,
will, go ahead.
so our next bill is a compost bill. This is HB 1497. And a large part of the focus of this bill is trying to clean up our compost stream. So it's incredibly valuable to get the food and yard waste out of the landfill because it degrades and makes methane, which is a very, very potent greenhouse gas, much more potent than CO2. So we want people to compost, or if it's edible, we want it to go to a food bank, or if it can, go to a pig farm or something like that, so that we want it to not go to the landfill. And this bill is a smaller bill than we've had in the past on composting. It is, though, important things that will help improve our compost system.
So we're worried about the methane, is it?
The reason you want to get your yard and food waste to not go to the landfill, you don't want to put it in your garbage bin, is because it rots pretty quickly within, within hours, but in the first couple of years, that's where you get all that methane coming from all the buried food waste. It makes methane. If it goes to compost, the microbes work on it and turn it into soil. There's a little bit of methane, but not much compared to the landfill.
So the bill would try to direct and support more composting programs.
More composting and more cleanup. We need to get the plastic and everything. We need people to be not putting contamination in the compost stream.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that's confusing sometimes to people because there's packaging that suggests that it might be compostable, but it may not actually easily degrade.
That is true. Okay, this last bill that I want to talk about is actually very technical. It's about refrigerant gases, and it's HB 1462, and it's SB 5438. And the situation with refrigerant gases is that I said methane was bad. Refrigerant gases are order of magnitude worse. Sorry, I'm trying to get rid of that. Are order of magnitude worse than methane. They are really bad greenhouse gases. And there's international treaties and there are federal regulations that are going to make it so you can't make new bad gases. In other words, they're tamping down over the next 5 years. So there's going to be a shortage of gas for people who have existing HVAC systems. So like if you have a skyscraper or an Apple warehouse, you have this pretty expensive equipment you put in and it uses this gas. Or if you have an air conditioning unit, it uses this gas. So what we want is for people to reclaim that gas and keep it in the system. As long as it's sealed in the pipes of those HVAC systems, it's not going to have a greenhouse gas impact. It will eventually need to be destroyed, but in the meantime, we want it to be recirculated and used in those HVAC and appliances and not vented to the atmosphere. And the problem is the technicians have been not incentivized, and they have, when they're doing repair, they vent. They let the gas vent. So we're trying to create value of that reclaimed gas so that it will stay in the system until someone redoes their HVAC system. HVAC systems last 20 to 30 years. So we don't want people, and they can't afford to go in and do a brand new HVAC system today. So we want that gas to be circulated in the system, kept safe from going in the atmosphere and then eventually destroyed.
So the
Like I
technology
said,
to
it's a
do this-
technical bill. Mhm.
So the technology to do this is available.
Yeah.
It just represents an added cost to the people who are servicing.
Well, actually, it isn't. So that's the thing, is that it isn't an added cost. We just don't want them to vent it. We want them to put it into canisters when they take it out. They most do, but there's some that don't. So that's the issue. And it's going to be a cost savings for the apple farmers and the people who have those big warehouses, because they got to keep them cold, right? If they actually can continue to use their existing system and continue to use the gas. It's going to be much more expensive for them to have to transition to the new gas, which they will have to do eventually, in 10
Right,
years.
that's the way we're
Yeah.
going. I mean, it's
That's
sort
the
of
way
like,
we're going. Yeah,
it's sort of like a lot of things. It takes time to make the transition. And so
That's right.
you're trying to reduce the bad stuff in the interim.
That's exactly right. That's exactly
Okay.
right. Yeah.
So it sounds like this is I mean, I wish you success in the next coming days and weeks. And we'll keep an eye on these bills.
Thank you.
And we'll also I look forward to talking to you off session about the other things that Zero Waste Washington does in addition to lobbying to make our laws better.
Great, would love to. For example, we are starting a farm project where we are providing items for farmers to test, including in Kitsap County.
Great. We'll talk
Yeah.
about that later.
Yes,
Thank you very much for your time. I'll let you get back. I know you're planning to testify in a little bit, so
I am. Thank you so much for having me on.
you're welcome. Talk to you
Bye-bye.
soon.